hello again, KCIW listeners, and welcome to Curry Café. Every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m., producer and host Ray Gary puts together a panel of volunteers and guests to discuss various topics of interest to our community. And for those that have questions or comments about the show, you can text in at 541-661-4098. Again, that's 541-661-4098. Now, here's Ray to tell us about today's show.
Oh, yeah, this is Ray, and he's already said all the things I usually say in my introduction, so the longer I'm here, the less useful I am, I think. So.
Oh.
Anyway, we can go around the table and introduce people. I have to apologize ahead of time. I don't know that this is going to be a very lively show, but anyway, go around the table here, and we can start with you, Shirley, and tell us a little about yourself.
Well, hello there, and I'm here fairly often, I guess, at Curry Café because I love the cinnamon rolls and the coffee's awfully good here. Anyway, today I'm here with my friend Billie Ruth, and we're going to talk about our musical lives. But before we do that, I'm going to pass it over to Rick.
Okay, Rick, volunteer here at KCIW, and pretty thrilled to have this show today. Been wanting to do this for a long time with Shirley and Billie and Mr. Ray, who has his own music shows going on here.
I have to back up for a minute and go back to Shirley, who's being incredibly modest by not telling us about her ability as an author and the book.
My goodness.
What's the name of the one that you gave me the other day?
Oh, the book that I gave you? Once Upon a Time and Other Short Stories.
And that's available where?
It is available on Amazon, or you can get a hold of me and I'll just sell you or give you a copy, depending on how I feel.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
Ray and I, ages ago, I used to have a show here on KCOW called Shirley Shorts. And I'm a short story writer, predominantly. And I used to record my stories. And Ray got used to listening to me reading my stories. So when I did a new collection, I handed it off so he'd see what I'm up to now.
Being a creative is, to me, amazing, that people can write a song or write a story or something like that. And Shirley's stories go all over the place. They're just amazing. The characters she comes up with and the situations they're getting into and different things. Anyway, so Billy probably sitting there thinking, but I'm here too.
Well, Billy
has many stories too.
I'm not like that, but yeah,
You were thinking that.
My name is Billie Ruth Furuichi. Shirley and I have known each other here since 2006, and yeah, we both write. I write short stories and poetry. I have a couple of books out as well. Shirley gave me her book a couple weeks ago, and they are fantastic, those stories. Those new stories are awesome. So
golly.
Yeah, so people need to go to Amazon and get a copy of that right now.
I have to confess to you that I lent my copy to Victoria Lindemann, who's bedridden right now, dying for something, and she told me she's really enjoying the book.
Is she ill?
No, she has I don't know if is it ethical to talk about that.
No,
she has a torn meniscus. Anyway,
yeah, we're sorry, Victoria. If you're listening, get well fast.
You bet.
Yeah, and read those stories because they're so good. There's one in particular that I liked. I can't remember the name of it, but it's about the woman who walks down on the beach and there's a dead husband that appears or
no.
Okay, so I'm getting it wrong already.
It's funny. We were going to talk about music, but
we are going to talk about music.
Trapped.
We have an hour to fill. We can talk about anything we like. It's our show.
Storyland, but music and writing lyrics to songs and writing a short story are very, very similar. I mean, you have a little story to tell. And how are you going to tell it? Think of the story and then the best way to set it down and make it work. And with music, those little short stories are in the lyric of songs, and predominantly, I think during the golden time of songwriting, during the 30s and 40s and early 50s, that's the era that to me had the most expressive lyrics that were more like telling the little story. And you know, we can talk to Ray about how much he loves the songs where they just have 2 lines and they just sing them over and over again. But
I'm going to rock and roll all night and party every day. Probably sold more copies than White Christmas.
So music is all over the place. But to wind up what you asked me, this lady comes to a little town, and everybody in the town says, well, don't go down to that particular beach because you might disappear. So you'll find it. It's a walk on the beach.
Yes, Victoria will like that story. So I was thinking about the songs that I've written over the years, and usually they are in the romantic vein, or sometimes in the 60s. I wrote protest songs in the 60s.
What's that?
Protest
songs
good.
in the 60s when I started out. I started out as a folk singer in the 60s, and so I naturally evolved that way. So, and I know Shirley has been singing and playing the violin. I sing and play the guitar. I don't sing as much as I used to, but I might have to try to take it up again. Yeah. So our background is quite extensive, and we could take at least 3 or 4 hours to do this show.
But we don't.
Yeah.
We only have 55 minutes left, so.
All right.
But you know, Billy, one of the things that occurred to me is that we ought to talk about how music formed and shaped our lives, because
yes, I agree.
We started doing music, performing music, or playing music, learning music when we were children.
Yes.
And it's really incredibly important to have a nurturing environment. I was raised by a mother who believed strongly in music and wanted all of us, 5 children, to play an instrument. And it was so important in her world that when she discovered that I had a very good ear for music and sang on key, blah, 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 she started me playing the violin at age 5. Well, you know, nowadays people say, oh, 3 years old, start them on the violin. And I think, no, good grief, you know. But that's when I started playing. And I had some very difficult situations because I really didn't take to it. I didn't take to it, not because I couldn't do it, but because there was a lot of pressure involved. And I think when music is on demand, it's different from saying, let's nurture what you do and help you to express yourself, is no, you will do it this way. Mm-hmm. And I think classical music particularly is that, no, you do it this way kind of learning. Play the notes, exactly the way it's been written, and don't improvise. Well, later on in life, in order to really connect with your instrument and have fun and play well, if you can't find a way to break away from that and go into some sort of improvisational, then it's very stilted. Mm-hmm. And just to rave on here a little bit longer, when I first moved to Brookings, I was invited to a music party. And there was a gentleman there who was in his 80s, and everybody knew who he was, and he was the one that started the local orchestra. Gene Andre was his name, and somebody was playing the piano, and they asked him to please play this particular piece, which he did, and he did a lovely job. And then I played some little fiddly thing, and he said to me, oh, my God, I wish I could play like that. And I thought, oh, my word, what is going on in his head? You know? I'm listening to him perform this gorgeous piece of music, and then here I am doing this little fiddle tune. But it was because of the freedom to be able to step away from that rigid, and that's not a very nice word to use, but
that's true.
To play it with feeling, but play it the way it's written, and that's a real trick.
And I agree with you on that line. But I started playing the violin when I was 7, and I wanted to play the violin, and I got a really good teacher, Mr. Reynolds. Smoked a big old cigar during our lessons. But he taught me all of the right ways to read music and to do the bowing and to do the staccato and to go up into the different positions. So I learned that quite young as well. And I moved into an area where I liked doing improv when I ran into a friend of mine in Santa Cruz when I was doing technical writing in Santa Cruz, and she also played the violin in the symphony, in Santa Cruz Symphony. She and I would improv together. We would choose a mode and say, okay, here's the mode. Let's do this scale and only stay
For
on
those
this.
of you at home who can't see what she's doing, she's using
I'm using my hands.
movements. She was playing air violin.
Yeah, but if you pick a mode and say, okay, let's all together, let's get together and improvise on like a modal da da do 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 do, and just keep those notes and don't go away from those notes, and then everybody gets off onto a different. Yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
It always amazes me when I have no creativity whatsoever, and if I had written one John Mellencamp song, I would think that was the most wonderful thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I would just rest.
Just quit.
But he writes another one every other day, and they're all great lyrics, great everything about it. But the thing that I always wondered about in music is, okay, you got the band, you put everything together, and you're in the recording studio, and you've all decided who's going to do what. Who decides, and how do you decide when there's enough cowbell? Or when you've done
The arranger.
all of it, they're singing along, and then here comes a drum.
Well, it's usually like
or a solo from something.
The
But it's
arranger.
the arranger does it, but it's usually set off, and this person does 8 bars, that person does 8 bars, that person does 8 bars, that person does 8 bars, and then it circulates back and forth that way.
Well, you're talking about more like a jazz
That's
group
a
or
jazz
something.
thing.
Yeah,
That would
somebody-
be in the jazz routine, yeah.
But Ray, to answer your question, when you are a really good musician, you know your place, so to speak, and each person, you can give the nod to another person, and they can pick it up.
Probably
and do what
answers the next question I
Okay.
was going to have.
All right.
In the Woodstock one movie, a Woodstock show, Santana was on. Evidently he wasn't even famous at the time, and he did. What was that called? Do you know what I'm talking? Is it Soul Sacrifice?
Yeah, Soul Sacrifice with that
And it's
heck of a
about
drum solo, and yeah.
It's about almost 10 minutes long. And he's got about 5 people in the band, and it seems like, okay, the guy were those bongo drums that they're playing?
Yeah, bongos. were
He
going.
knew how long he was supposed to be, and then it went on to the next one, and then it went on to the drummer, who did the most incredible drum solo ever done by anybody at any time.
Top 3 or 4, probably.
And then comes back to Santana, who hits him with a little guitar. And I
Well,
don't.
Ray,
how
the
do they?
song-
How do they
the-
know? How does the drummer know?
It's-
How do
the
the other
song-
members of the band know?
You have to
that
know
when
the
the drummer's
music.
done.
You have to
know the
music.
song. You know the song. You know how many bars. If you read music,
but it didn't seem to be like that, though. It's not
well,
like
they pass it to each other. They do until they've come to the end of a riff or the
And it's
end.
Yeah.
usually a bar. It's
Yeah.
8 to 16 bars. Now, when I was doing jazz, I was singing jazz in Mexico for a while. And the drummer would go on we would allow the drummer to continue until the cows came home because he was the lead. But you do 8 to 16 bars, then it goes off to the cornet, then
are
it
you
goes off
familiar
to
with
the
the-
piano.
Are you familiar with the song I'm talking about or the show?
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
The Soul Sacrifice?
Mm-hmm.
I don't imagine you watched Woodstock.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
But yeah, that always just blows me away every time I see it.
Yeah.
But,
too.
but Ray, if you're in a group and you're a professional and you know this music inside and out,
Yep.
you pass it to the next guy. You do your piece, which is, as Billy said, so many bars, or you come to the end of the riff, or you get to a place where you hand it off to the next guy. And these guys know what they're doing backwards and forwards, and they're just given the freedom to work within that space and time.
The story I read about Santana at that time, it was a brand new group, and the drummer, who was only like 19 years old or something like that, had not been with the band for very long, and he had been playing like everywhere he could just to get noticed, and he was like a 19-year-old kid starving to death. And one day somebody from Santana came up to talk to him and asked if he would like to play with them. And he said, well, I'll have to check my schedule and see.
Right.
You know, I when you're talking about how do you know when to come in, it reminded me about when I was playing in an orchestra. And you've done that too. When you're playing in an orchestra, the music, you're reading the music, and if you have the professional background of being in an orchestra or knowing how to read music, you can see on the staff that there are a certain number of bars where the first violins do maybe 8 bars or something, and then all of a sudden the conductor will point to the second violins or point to the flutes or point to the cello, but when you're in a band, you don't have that director. However, if you've got the musical background and the skills, you know exactly when to come in because you develop a feeling.
If you're
for
playing a record that you played, a song you played 1,000 times with your band, you obviously know exactly when it's time to move on.
Oh gosh, that reminds me of a story I got to tell.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, you know the
Good
record.
thing you're here.
Yes,
Go
yes,
ahead.
Yes. Okay, so we grew up in a musical family, and we would always go to the concert orchestras, and one time they were playing the same thing in the orchestra that we had at home as a record. And in those days, it was a 78 record, and you'd turn it over at a certain point. Well, I'm 3 years old, okay, so I'm up there, and I'm sitting with my mom.
I hope they weren't letting you handle that 78.
No, and they come to a certain part in the orchestra, and I yell out as loud as I can, "It's time to turn the record over, Mommy." and everybody laughed. But I know Mom was embarrassed. I know they were embarrassed. But the point being, if you're familiar enough with the music and you have a musical ear, you know exactly what comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? We're getting one heck of a music lesson here, and this is great. And I hope,
Yes,
but
we are.
I want to let everybody know if you have comments or questions, our text line is 541-661-4098. And I want to jump back. Billie, you had mentioned folk music. Mm-hmm. Now, we're all within 10 years of each other somewhere. But folk music, and I hear a lot on your show, Ray, what's going on, because that was a lot of protest music. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But do we all agree? I think folk music back in the 60s was a great molding or melding together of a lot of good.
One of the magical times in music history.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I'm still a big folk music fan, whether it's Peter, Paul, and Mary or
the Limelighter.
Okay.
Yeah, Joan Baez. I usually sang. I covered Joan Baez and Judy Collins songs, and
beautiful.
And the Peter, Paul, and Mary. I covered some of their songs too, but I wrote my own songs as well.
I have a question. I never heard that expression "cover" growing up, or even until I started going to listen to live music where there was a single performer. And they say, "Well, this is a so and so cover," and I'm like, "What does that mean, cover?"
You know,
and it means you're playing somebody else's song.
That word was just
it's not an
in
original.
Not in my lexicon.
When I was growing up, to me anyway, when somebody talked about a cover song, it would be like, Pat Boone singing Little Richard. You're stealing the song by covering it.
You're not stealing it. You're just reinterpreting it.
Either the word, the meaning of the word has changed, or my understanding of the word. But now it's not. Yeah, it's perfectly all right.
It's perfectly fine. When I was singing in the 60s, I started singing folk songs when I was still a junior in high school. And I sang at the Green Spider in Denver.
Green Spider, what a great name.
Yeah, I know, it was great. And so I sang, I had 2 45-minute sets of all different songs.
Now, this is you singing and accompanying yourself?
Yeah, just me and my guitar, yeah. And one of the songs I used to sing in those days was written by a woman that I met who was playing at the Catalyst, Lydia Wood. She wrote a song called Anathea, and Judy Collins covered her song. So I got it from Lydia Wood and Judy Collins and learned it myself. So I would cover it and Judy would cover it as well. It's a beautiful song.
Well,
yeah.
I have a completely different experience because I didn't really start to sing until in high school. I said to my mother, I want to take some singing lessons. She said, anybody can sing. You play the violin. And I thought, okay, well, I understood that because she didn't want me to give up playing the instrument because she knew how I was resentful at the pressure that was put on me to perform. I never liked to perform. Of course, now you can't get me off the stage. But in those days, I really was very shy, and it wasn't something that I enjoyed doing. And so I put my violin away for 25 years. And it wasn't until somebody came into my house, and I don't know why my violin case was there. Anyway, they said, "Oh, you've got a fiddle." And I said, No, I've got a violin. And people often ask me that, what's the difference between a fiddle and a violin? Well,
the instrument's the same, but it's the technique.
A fiddle is just the kind of music that you're playing. So at any rate, it was very difficult for me to step into playing the violin again. There was so much emotional energy tied up in it, and it was hard, but I learned how to just make it okay to start playing again. And the people that I fell in with at that time were the people who were playing folk music and bluegrass. And I'd never heard of bluegrass.
I love bluegrass.
What the heck is bluegrass?
But you had sung before. Didn't you start singing in high school, or did your mother talk you out of it?
No, I sang in girls' concert chorus.
Oh, okay. All right.
That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I wanted to sing in, a soloist or in a small trio or something like that. But anyway, so it was learning how to overcome all of the fears and all of my past history with the violin to become a, quote, fiddler, unquote. And so it was a great experience for me because I didn't know that I could improvise. I didn't know that I did have the ability, and it sort of unlocked some doors for me. And I got very interested in the harmonies. I love harmonies.
I do,
and bluegrass has got harmonies. I don't love the high, lonesome sound. Pardon me, Bill Monroe, if you're listening. But the more contemporary groups, the really fine musicianship, and some of those songs. So anyway, when I moved to Brookings, I was then in the throes of having played bluegrass and done some performing, blah, blah, blah. And I was looking for musicians, thinking that I wanted to play more of bluegrass. Well, it's a very long story, and I'll just jump to the chase. From playing bluegrass, I then met this guy, John Boy, who's no longer with us. But he said, how about swing? Let's do some swing. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, swing is the music that I grew up listening to. And so that was already sort of in my head, and I could call on it. So somebody would say, oh, do you know such and such? And I go, oh, yeah, I know that, because I know the melody line. Yeah. Now, not everybody listens to music the same way that I do. But hearing the melody line, that is what the vocalist sings, if it's got a vocal, or the lead melody in whatever it is. And so that's what I've been doing for the past while is playing swing, which I love.
Yeah, and you sing it beautifully. Also, I have heard you played some songs that your group in Palo Alto did. When you were singing with that bluegrass group, and you guys were awesome. The harmonies that you came up with, wait till you hear. I mean, you've got to play those on KCIW sometime. They're really good.
Over into your bailiwick with this, Ray, when you get together with a group of people in a room and they're all musicians, if they're kind of into the same mold, they all know the same music. And so I really lucked out with some of these people because we fell into our natural placement with our voices, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that I didn't have to say, why don't you sing the third part and I'll take the second or whatever. We just managed to make it work almost automatically. And it was just a blending of voices, all of us really enjoying the heck out of singing together. I
and
loved
that
it.
and that comes naturally when you have the background of singing, like you said, in a choir. I sang in opera when I was just a kid, the Greater Denver Opera Association, and my sister's piano teacher, Antonio Brico, was the one who started that. And so just singing, and I sang in Beethoven's Ninth and Hansel and Gretel and all these things when I was just a kid. So you get used to holding your note and knowing, okay, now I'm a soprano now, or I'm an alto now, or and you get used to it, but it's all, it comes from the background.
Yeah.
Growing up that way.
Well, before I forget, and we have here now 2 local singers, and I don't know, do you sing or anything, Rick? You play?
To my dog in back.
Oh, okay, yeah. My cat.
Well, we should
My
have
cat hates me to sing, but that's too
we should
bad.
have a jam session. Let's have a jam session.
Anyway, you can
Talked about
any Thursday night at 5:00 come down to the Checo Brewery, and in the big room in the back there we have an open mic
On
and
Sunday?
No, Thursday.
Thursday.
Oh.
Thursday starts at 5:00, and if you are an entertainer yourself, you can bring whatever instrument or do whatever you want. But just get to listen to some of our local people here and get to know them.
Lots of guitar players.
Lots of guitar players.
Yeah.
And I would add that I would be another guitar player, but I have had my whole life. I was in a couple groups, the garage bands back when the Beatles and everybody had a garage band. But when I got up on any kind of stage for a high school thing or a party, everybody would say, "Man, were you all right?" I would just like freeze. I think you have to have an innate ability to enjoy yourself.
Or
up
lots
in
of drugs.
Or you have to be. Or you have.
booze. And,
Hit a joint or two before you get on stage, and people say, "Hey, he was all right."
But when we were kids, I mean, I was just a ham. I was always a ham. I mean, you could put a guitar.
You're still a ham,
I'm
honey.
still. Yes, I am. It's true. But
Not Billy.
no, I got the name Silly Billy from just being that eager and willing to get up and sing. I could always.
like I
do
said, I
that.
think that's something you either have or you don't. I've never been able to quite get over that.
But I think if we sat down, if we had a jam session, you would get in the swing of it. Yeah.
But Rick, there are people who suffer terribly with stage fright.
Yeah, there are.
And they go ahead and get out there and they do their thing.
Yes, and one person who I heard has that problem, she can't sing anymore.
Carly Simon.
I didn't know that,
Yeah.
but I know Linda Ronstadt of all people.
Amazing.
really?
Elvis Presley did too.
Really?
All that shaking and jiving, huh?
Maybe that got him relaxed enough
Maybe
to
so.
sing.
One
yeah.
of the two, what they call the comeback special, where he basically sat with his homies and were jamming.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was in the dressing room prior to going on, and he told the producer, "I can't do this. I'm not going on." And they almost had to drag him out, make him come out there and do. Now here, he was it was extremely well established then. He wasn't like Indiana Hayride or something. He'd been around for a long, long time, but he couldn't come out there and do that.
And if I may praise here, I have seen Shirley perform 2 or 3 times locally, and you seem to be very relaxed up on stage.
And the thing is, she's not only experienced and practiced, but she has a natural, beautiful voice.
Yes, she does.
If she had to pull that voice out
Oh,
of
my goodness, you
No,
guys.
you do. You have a beautiful voice still.
Oh, how sweet.
Yeah. I
No,
can't sing
I'll
much
tell you,
anymore.
If you come to open mic, you'll be pleased by the sound system and the acoustics. It's just lovely in the old body shop. But it's pretty good, though. It's fun.
Okay, well, I'll think about that. But I do think that stage fright is there are different techniques that people use. But one of the things that recently I had to say to myself if I felt a little bit frightened when I got up there and say, well, I'm the only one here who's playing the violin, so, so I'm going to make it okay. And to not, to care about the people who are there. If they came to hear me, I'm delighted. I'm thrilled if somebody comes on purpose,
Right.
But there could be just strangers, whatever, to get comfortable with the idea that people are going to like you or not. And you have no control over it. You just do your best. If you're not having a good time, then get off the stage. But if you can enjoy yourself and feel confident, all of you guys know that I talk all the time, but I think being able to connect with the audience.
If they didn't know it before, they know it now.
They know now.
And we're glad you do.
But to get comfortable with the idea that people do come to be entertained. They want you to do your best, and if you make a mistake, and this is, I think, vitally important to remember, if you make a mistake, they love you even more because they see you as human and one of them and all of those good things. So, so they're forgiving. They don't hold it against you, in other words.
They don't. I agree, and I think that especially if you're up there to give a gift and say, I'm here giving you a gift, and if you make a mistake, which I do, I make lots of mistakes, and sometimes I'll hit a note and I'll realize, or not, yeah. But I have perfect pitch, so I usually hit the notes unless my voice doesn't allow me to. But if people are there because they are willing to accept you being a flawed human being, then you can relax. If you get up there and you say, "Oh, I've got to do it right," and then your throat will tighten up. And I've had my throat tighten up sometimes, and it doesn't flow.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned that you need to be having a good time, and that for the audience, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the key elements of being of doing a good show. And if you travel around, see some of the old groups from the 60s or 70s or whatever, and there's two kinds. One is out there enjoying their music and just playing the hell out of it, and then there's other bands that get up there that do their 90 minutes and get the hell off the stage.
Yeah.
I hate going seeing a group like that and then have them sing the record. I have the record.
Oh yeah,
I want to I want to hear how you do it.
Yeah.
But
Well, I have to ask.
That's true.
And before I ask, I'm going to give out the text line again, because if you have questions or comments, you can text in 541-661-4098. So have either of you been up there performing? I probably have. Been heckled by anybody?
No.
No.
Oh, well, because I hear that with comedians all the time.
Well,
I know that's a different kind of.
Oh, that's a different performance.
Okay.
Yeah. The only time, I remember one time I was gigging in Colorado. I was in Kansas City. The union sent me to this Kansas City dive bar. You remember Rap Brush?
Yes.
Okay, Rap and I realized at one point we were talking at an art walk party, and I was talking about this dive bar in Kansas City that the union sent me to, and he said, "Oh, I played that same damn dive bar." Oh, excuse my language. And but in that dive bar, it's the only time. I mean, they were just a bunch of drunks, and I did hear somebody say, "Hey, play Melancholy Baby."
Isn't that funny?
And they
I've
really
seen
did
that
say
too,
they
yeah.
really said that to me.
Lady of Spain, play Lady of Spain.
Yeah.
Speaking of you passed over Rap very, very quickly. Rap was just a wonderful person.
He was amazing.
He was a great guitar player and a great singer, and he always had a story. I mean, if he was here today, we would all have to leave because Rap had a story about this place, that place, and he used to be a full brush man. And
I remember, but I didn't know him in Colorado. But we were playing the same places at different times and the same years.
He was a great writer too, and one of the stories that
Lon recorded.
Lon recorded, and it plays every now and then, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was about him when he was a kid, and his uncle and his grandfather or somebody tried to kill a mole or a vole or a gopher.
A gopher.
and he was upset about that, and he went and recovered the body, and he buried it, and the next day he went back, and there was no gopher in the hole anymore, and it evidently wasn't dead, and it drug itself away.
Did he write a song about it?
So no, it was a story.
Yeah, but he should have written a song about that.
Oh, he may have. But and then Lon does a great job of reading it. Lon is really a wonderful performer and that type of thing.
Well, I was just going to say, what you're doing now is talking about people whose talents expand beyond their musical abilities.
Sure.
You know, like we were just talking about Rap. I mean, toward the end, I mean, he certainly had lost his spark and wasn't singing anymore, etc. But he was a storyteller, and he was a writer, and and you're a writer and a storyteller, and a linguist, and a teacher, and all of these things. And it tends to be that people with a true creative bent are multi-talented or can express themselves in several different paths. And I want to talk just for a second about my favorite lyric writer, Johnny Mercer.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
And he was a fabulous lyricist. I can only think of 2 songs where he actually wrote the music that went with his words. But most of the people who wrote the music needed somebody else to set the lyric to that music, or vice versa. Somebody who would come up with the lyric and then get somebody to set the melody to it. But to be able to do both of those things is another kind of talent, musical talent, because the words are the expression. But a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't listen to the words. I just hear the music." And I go, "How can you not listen to the words?"
Yeah.
But our brain works differently. I'm really interested in the words, and I'm a writer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But other people go, "Well, just I just listen to the drummer, or I don't just hear the whole thing. I don't really hear the music." And I think, how do people listen?
I think it's a holistic thing. You have to listen to the lyrics and the music. I had a friend who's still doing music in Santa Cruz. He wrote this beautiful piece. He wrote several beautiful pieces on the piano, and he would have me do the lyrics for him. So there's a couple of his that I still sing, except I can't sing them with the guitar because the music is too complicated. So I sing them with his keyboard music.
Could it all have been so simple then, or has time rewritten every line? I love that song.
Listen to
that's a good
music.
line.
The poetry readings from
Yeah.
show. Shirley and everybody.
I would like to remind you that this is my show, and I will not be criticized and made fun of on it.
I humbly apologize.
You can be edited out.
Anyway, back to the lyrics.
Yeah.
I am very guilty of what you were saying, especially in the older days. Now you can pull up the lyrics of any song on the phone.
Yes.
But I was one that probably, back in those days, I'll use, for example, Stevie Nicks songs.
Yeah, I love her.
I do too, but I can't understand a word she's saying. I don't know if do you
I can
have that? I was listening
I can understand her.
I was listening to
I think
Gypsy the other day. It came on, and a beautiful song, and I'm thinking, what in that? But I could go to my phone now and pull up the lyrics.
Songs like White Winged Dove can be difficult to.
Well, yeah,
quite a few of them.
It's her voice, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Enunciate.
Yes.
Enunciate. My father said that to me when he recorded this particular CD here that's got 12 songs on it that I used to do and as folk songs. And my dad had a big old recorder, with those big old reel-to-reel recorders.
Gosh, yes.
And so he sat me down and he coached me a couple of times during this session. And he said, "Now, Billie, I want you to really enunciate those words. Let's do that one again."
My parents grew up in Brooklyn, so they didn't know anything about enunciating. Never.
But music is personal, and I think that I know people in my life who are musical, but they can't stand the sound of some things that I think sound just wonderful. And Ray and I love each other to death, we really do. But we criticize each other's taste in music all the time, just because we can,
And it's fun to
just because
listen
we
to.
can.
And vive la différence.
Yeah, but Ray's not a musician. Pardon me, Ray, but he's not a musician. But he loves music, so
Yes.
his approach to it is very, very different from mine, and I'm schooled from a different era, et cetera, et cetera.
Me too.
We are constantly disagreeing on when she was doing her show. She'd be cringing the music she picked out, and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said it was off. What was it? Off key?
Off key.
pitch?
Somebody's singing off
And she
key.
could never
I can't
explain to me
stand that.
what the. Recently, I
key.
heard a criticism of one of our local beloved singers that she's very flat.
Oh, I know who you mean. She is flat.
Ruined my
yeah.
whole perception. I had tried
Yeah,
to figure
it's
out
all
what
right.
flat meant.
It's all right. We don't need to go. Oh, it looks like we have a text.
Yeah, we have a hotline here. That
Oh, a
the
hotline
text
text,
line
okay.
is burning up.
Good.
So if you guys, ladies, can handle more praise.
Oh, yeah. Well,
The texter says, I've always enjoyed when Billie and Shirley are on the show, and to hear their personal stories is simply fantastic. Awesome show.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
thank you very much, whoever
So,
that was.
If you would like to send a text praising me, feel perfectly free.
Let me do that right now.
The number is 541.
One thing I'd like to ask all these creative people while we're sitting here is that, you know, when Frank Sinatra did a song or Glenn Miller or back in the day, they recorded it over and over again until it was perfect. It might take, maybe a whole day to record one song.
Of course.
And today, it still takes a long time to do it, but the guy playing the drums may be in Chicago, the singer may be in France, and they take all these tapes and run them together. What do you guys think of that?
Weird. Well, I think that music is not, it's not the same. They're doing a production. They're not together. They're not feeding off of each other's energy. But getting back to
probably very few of them are actually recorded. Most of them are probably recorded with everybody in the studio, but everything is a different track. And
exactly. When I lived in New York, I went out on a date with a fellow who I can't even remember his name, but whatever. Anyway, he
that's
took
the way
me.
you would just toss us away like that.
Yes,
Go
yeah.
ahead.
Anyway, he took me
another one.
for some reason. I can't recall why. He took me to a recording studio, and Billy Eckstein was there recording. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's wearing a baseball cap and sneakers. And I thought, my vision of him as this very elegant man, you know, and Billy Eckstein, good grief.
Yeah.
I mean, the stories about him, they, have written that he had the sexiest voice in music. You know, he was making love to women through his wonderful voice. And I just remember thinking, he's all by himself, standing alone in a studio, singing, and then everything else is going to come in behind him somehow, or it's in his headset.
In his headset.
You know?
Yeah, he sings.
I didn't know they did that then.
Well,
yeah,
this
of
was in the
course.
60s. So,
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
That was-
it's different. I don't like live recordings, generally speaking, because it's uneven, and I don't like to hear the applause at the end. You know, it takes up time, so to speak. But I think getting back to your original question, Ray, about how do they do it? You know, this musical ability, it's so elusive. It's not something you can grab and hold on to and say, this is what it is, because it's something in the brain. And if it's not there, it's very hard to get it there. If you can't hear pitch, if you can't hear whether somebody's singing on key or not, your musical ear is not the same as, say, mine would be or Billy's would be, where we hear the nuance in the tonal level. We hear the difference in the pitch.
And we have to be careful if we're in an audience and someone is singing off pitch, I have to really be careful not to wince, because really, this is true.
Yeah, it bothers me.
It bothers other people if they see me wince and they don't know why I'm wincing. It's So you have to be.
It's painful to hear people sing off key.
But we also have to be polite listeners. But it is painful to hear someone sing off key. It truly is. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't hear that. They're
don't hear it.
They're into the performance itself, or they happen to like the person, or they're much more forgiving, whatever, all the ingredients. But I'll get back to playing the violin. The magic part of playing the violin is really having the ear for it and muscle memory, because there's no key there that says press this thing here and you'll get this note. No, you put your finger on the string and it creates a note. And if it's not right, you move your finger because your ear tells you to.
Yes.
Uh-oh, you're a little bit too high.
Or your teacher winces.
Well, and that's where the guitar is a little better. I say better.
Yeah.
We have frets, but like a bass, a cello, a violin, that's all feel.
It's feel. Yeah.
It's the ear telling the muscle you're in the right place.
Right.
You know.
And your fingers have to remember exactly where they were. It's an incredibly precise skill.
Yeah.
I was told once that the people who play wind instruments, if they take a month off or something, it's like starting all over again when they come back. Unlike string instruments.
What do you mean starting?
If they play the saxophone or the trumpet or something like that,
they lose their breath, their technique, or
no, if they've dropped out of practicing every day for a month or more, then it takes a long time to get it back again.
It's the same with the violin.
Is it?
It's the same with the guitar. Practice. I mean, that whole cliche, practice makes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If you drop anything for a month or so, it takes a lot of
try 20 years.
Yeah, try 20 years. Yeah.
We're down to the last quarter of the show, but I have a pretty broad question I did want to ask, and I'm including you, Ray, in your music appreciation. Any genre, with Alex Trebek, genre, however you say that, genre or types of music that you absolutely think is the best. And I want to just say a little story this morning. Going through my house and doing some computer work, and I had Baroque and Beyond on the radio today.
Oh, wow.
With a lot of they call it Baroque music or symphony. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful and calming. Might not be my favorite, but it was in that mood. But do you guys have anything that you would put above and beyond the type of music you want to play or listen to?
Oh my God!
Oh, that's a hard question.
Well, it's pretty broad.
I love classical. I love jazz.
Okay.
I love the 40s. I love bluegrass. That I couldn't answer that.
It's a more of a mood,
Right. Well, like I said this morning, that was perfect for me.
Yeah.
I think for me it would be easier to list what I don't want to listen to.
Oh,
that's true.
I do not understand why anybody listens to country music.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my goodness!
What era? Let's.
I'll
take that back.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
what era of country?
When you're going back to Hank Williams and people like that.
I love that.
But now when it's all hat and no cow.
Yeah, the newer country.
The new country. I don't like the new country.
No.
All hat, no cattle.
And
I like it.
Even some of the Hank Williams kind of stuff is, but I grew up with that because he was pre-rock and roll and he was having hits like Jambalaya and stuff like that.
That's the stuff that my dad played when I was 4 or 5 years old.
Me too.
That's what I remember. Johnny Cash,
and then
Patsy Cline. That was. I still love that stuff.
I do too. I love that. But country music today is not the same at all. It's more like a country rock and roll. I don't like that.
No.
Yeah.
The change from change from country that we listened to was Les Paul and Mary Ford.
Yeah.
That was almost to me the dawn of rock and roll, or the dawn, or the wind was in the trees or something, and you could see something new was coming.
Changed.
And it literally was like How High the Moon was, 51, 52? Just about the same time rhythm and blues was sneaking in from the other direction.
Well, he was experimenting with overdubbing, and that's different from separate band members being there to perform.
Right.
But it was all about the recording for them.
I can remember a song. I said, "That's just one person singing, and it's singing."
Yeah, harmony. Hello.
Yes. Les Paul, before he died, used to play in a little club in New York. I said every Monday or something, and for several years in a row, I was staying in an hour away from New York, and I never went to see him. That's one of the regrets of my life.
Well, you should really beat yourself up for that.
I know.
Yeah. Try to.
No, but looking back, you think, well, why didn't I do that while I was there? Why didn't I do this when I was there? Well, gosh, I wish it is what it is. But hearing people live who are icons in some way, it really is so different from putting on your headset and listening to the music. Seeing people, seeing people live reminds me of Roger Miller, and he had made such a big hit, with
Trailer for Sailing.
Anyway, he was appearing in San Jose, and I'm like, oh, let's go hear Roger. He was drunk out of his mind, and I thought, it's too bad
It is
that
deep.
here's this guy. He was best at doing the recording of his music, and he did write some great stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people were really tortured. You know, they were alcoholics,
A lot
or
of
they
them.
were druggies, or whatever. But if you got them into the studio and they could put out a good product, you could listen to. But don't bother to go and see
Yeah.
them in person.
Well, when I was singing jazz in Mexico, the Modern Jazz Quartet was playing Bellas Artes. And my mom was there visiting me at the time. And she and I got to go sit in the balcony because they invited us. Because Milt Jackson walked in while I was singing Summertime. I'll never forget that. So Milt Jackson walks into where I'm singing in this little jazz club. And then my mom was sitting there too. And he invited me and my mom. You don't know the Milt Jackson and the Modern Jazz Quartet?
No.
Oh,
but
my.
That's all right.
Oh, well, you'll have to look up Modern Jazz
Okay.
Quartet.
All right.
And-
I've heard the
Yeah.
phrase, but I just can't
Yeah.
call to mind
Milt-
what it sounds like.
Well-
Never mind.
Anyway, Milt Jackson played the vibes.
Okay.
And he invited us to go to the Bellas Artes, which is the big auditorium in Mexico City. And that's when we got to hear the Modern Jazz Quartet live. And hearing somebody live like that, there's nothing like it.
Yeah.
A real and the acoustics in a big auditorium like that. So you're right. Live music is so different from.
Ray had to dash out real quick. I was going to make him cringe a little bit. Maybe you guys will cringe too. But
What?
seeing somebody live that changed me about a certain person, and it was Merle Haggard of all people.
Oh my goodness.
Well, at the time, no, this is many years ago, but it was, to me, he was Okie from Muskogee, and I didn't get along.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I saw him live in a Sacramento outdoor stadium, but he was with Willie Nelson and Emmylou Harris,
Ooh,
both of
wow.
whom I love.
Yeah.
Well, Merle Haggard put on one heck of a show that
Yeah.
I thought, wow, this guy, he was playing the different instruments, the fiddle, the banjo, the guitar, and with the other two, it was a wonderful show, and my whole attitude about him changed.
Yeah, I didn't know he played all those instruments.
I didn't either.
Well,
until then.
he was also very good at copying other people's voices so that he could sing.
I've seen him do that in a little
So,
routine, and it was very funny.
The name is escaping me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think
Marty
that.
Robbins, and he would do all of those people.
That's interesting.
Well, there's a whole culture around certain performers, and like I went to see Willie Nelson on the peninsula. Can't think of the name of it. Anyway, he was there, and the audience, everybody was smoking pot.
Yeah.
It was so,
He's pretty
and-
famous for that.
Yeah, no, the audience. I mean, the room
Well,
was full of
Right.
everybody got high, but I remember thinking. He's going through the motions. I mean, he had been performing how many years? Good grief. But standing up there, I didn't get the vibe of him connecting with the audience. I really felt like he was just there with his group.
What year?
This was in the 80s, maybe late 80s, maybe.
So he was
somewhere in there.
He was beyond his prime then.
Yeah.
Well, but that was also okay, go ahead.
Well, and the women were all gaga over the harmonica player. So it was a unique experience because I remember thinking, well, he's a great songwriter. Oh my gosh, he wrote some wonderful, wonderful
Yeah.
songs. Crazy being the most popular,
Okay.
of course.
Yeah.
But I was disappointed because his heart wasn't in it. He was just there because
Wow.
the band was there.
Okay, well, maybe he had an off night, or like I said, I
He could have been jealous of the ladies
Of the harmonica
swooning over the harmonica player.
Well, but the thing is, when you are just performing and performing and performing and performing, it's hard to keep that energy going all the time and think that this is. I mean, think about it. You travel halfway across the country in a bus.
Yeah.
Hauling
yeah.
your, and you don't sleep well and you don't eat well and you got to be there and you got to set up and you can drag all this equipment around and everything. To me, that kind of live performing is not the same. Now,
like an arduous task.
Yeah,
almost.
Yeah,
I
even
love-
if you have roadies to do all that.
I like going to the concert in the park.
Yeah, I do too.
And
Yeah.
and seeing these people live and in person. and up front. And sometimes they turn out to be really great people on their way up, you know, and you hear them while they're just really excited about their music and they're doing a great job and they're there because they love it and they haven't worn themselves out yet.
Are we going to have more concerts in the park this spring and
I think so.
I believe they do it
I
every
hope
year.
so.
Yeah.
Why not? I haven't heard that it wouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, I
that'd
played
be-
there a couple of times with my group. so-
Yeah, I have too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've played there once, I think. No, maybe twice.
Well,
that was
Billy, you know, we were going to talk about how we first met each other and the music scene that was once in
once in Brookings.
Brookings,
yes.
and we met at the Firehouse,
the
up
Firehouse when it was
the Winchuck River.
yeah. Gosh, it had to be
That was
2006.
the first open mic, if you're interested.
It was
Ray.
the first open mic, and I was invited by Aura, who used to play with Lon.
Yeah.
And so I went up there, and I did. She said, "Bring your guitar, Billy. We have to hear you." Nobody had ever heard me sing, so it was like, oh, I don't know. I was a little. There was trepidation, but I got up there and I sang C.C. Ryder, and.
Right.
And The House of the Rising Sun and La Llorona, and everybody thought that was awesome. So I was in. And then I met you that night, I think. You were up there with your violin, your fiddle.
Well, I must have been there with maybe John or Mark
with-
on the mandolin.
Oh,
No?
yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
It was somebody with a mandolin. You and
Yeah.
somebody with a mandolin.
Yeah. Well, that was still my hangover bluegrass days.
Yes.
And John Boy, who we ended up having a long career together, became the Giraffes on a Raft.
Yeah. Oh, those are great. You
Yeah.
played at Brian Scott Gallery
Yeah.
often, and I loved those. I loved your music with John and the
Yeah, he's
stand-up
no longer
bass.
with us, unfortunately.
No, it is too bad.
But I've been through a lot of incarnations with
Yeah.
my music, and right now I'm not doing anything. So,
Well, then we should all get together and jam. Have a jam session.
Okay,
Jam
well,
session.
The KCIW band will be forming.
that's
Now,
right.
and
that's
we're
right.
almost out of time. And so I'm sorry for all the dead air that we had today.
Well, yeah, somebody said, "Are you sure you could fill an hour?" Oh, yeah, I
But
think
anyway, so yeah, like I said, any last minute things from anybody?
Well, I have a couple last minute things. Not a couple, one. If you have an idea, something you want us to talk about, send us an email, kciw.org. Or if you want to participate in the show, equally, you can come and do that. Send us an email and we'll invite you in.
And we already have a show slated for next Sunday. I wanted to bring that up. It's going to be about Martin Luther King
Yes.
Day,
Good.
and we're going to have a special guest from Mr. Robert O'Sullivan, and who this person knows a lot about the background. So that'll be next Sunday.
excellent.
Yeah, I want to reinforce what Billy said. You know, there are a lot of musicians in this community, surprisingly. When I moved here, I tried to find people to play music with, and gradually I did, and that's part of the story was the open mic. But we don't have anything like what we had in the beginning, which is just a bunch of people who play, getting together and not playing any particular style. It doesn't have to be country, doesn't have to be rock and roll, doesn't have to be anything. It's just let's get together and enjoy each other's music.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to send emails and texts to all your friends who do that. Maybe
Oh,
we
my
could
goodness.
set that someplace.
Well, there are people who come out of the woodwork, so to speak. You know, I'm like, oh, what are you doing here? Well, I just moved here and I happen to play blah, blah, blah. You know, It seems like people move here and we discover that they are musicians somehow.
And I just took my guitar to have to get lighter gauge strings. I took it down to Ernie, and
Good place.
he has a guitar shop down there. And then next door is the U-Haul place, and there's a fellow named Maximum who plays guitar. He doesn't go out to play, but he says he plays swamp funk. Whatever
Well,
that is.
that's a new genre.
We only have 30 seconds left, so we probably won't get to learn what funk is, but
Next,
we'll research it and we'll probably put it as an opener on next week's show. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and we're ready to get out of here.
Okay, KCIW 100.7 FM.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, adios.